Something very interesting just happened here in New York City. So while a lot of you are getting up right now, Eric Adams has just been indicted here in New York City after a federal probe into corruption in his 2021 mayoral campaign. So now Eric Adams, being the first sitting mayor to be indicted, is now indicted. So is this a good thing or a bad thing? We're going to go over that in a little bit. This video is not going to be that long, as this information just came out. A lot of people or administrators in Eric Adams' administration had resigned this week. One was being charged in a corruption probe as well. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was the NYPD commissioner. The FDNY commissioner is being investigated for some connections with the Chinese somehow. I'm not sure where that's going. You had two FDNY chiefs also get arrested for bribery and things of that nature. Bribery, earlier last week, if not mistaken, a week before. He had the mayor's right-hand lawyer, and not his personal lawyer, but the city lawyer. She resigned. The school chancellor resigned yesterday. The NYPD commissioner resigned as well about a week or a week and a half ago. And then you had the health czar, the health minister dude here in New York City, resign also. So all of these people resigned, and out of the 4 people that resigned, 2 of them will be effective at the end of this year, and 2 of them were immediately. So, and then the FDNY commissioner, he's just being investigated. I haven't heard anything new about that. And then he had 2 FDNY chiefs that were arrested. So the kingdom is falling apart. All the corruption is starting to be found out, or rather, is starting to be put out there in the open. And I find it interesting because the one side of me is like, all right, good, corruption is being handled. But the other side of me is like, this is only happening because of one reason. And that's because Eric Adams made too much noise about the illegal immigrant problem here in New York City. And that now that New York City is in a $5 billion deficit because of that, and he made all this noise blaming the Biden administration, all of these things started to come out. Now, some people will argue, including the FBI, will argue that they were investigating him back in his 2021 campaign, and probably a little even before that, because he is a bag of shit, Eric Adams. All of that being said, guys, he started making noise. They started outing him, and they started investigating him, and then they tried to say that they were doing it before he made that noise. But what I think is that a lot of these corrupt politicians throughout the country, they're already being watched. They're already being looked at. Their shit is being tagged, recorded, and then when they step out of line, the FBI is like, oh yeah? And then they come out with these probes that they've been doing since they started their illegal bullshit, whenever that was. Now, the person who steps in place, interim mayor who steps in place, is an even bigger bag of shit. Jumaane Williams. This dude, the stuttering prick that he is pro-crime. He's the absolute worst. Now, he's going to be in there for a short time, they said. That could be a week or 2, but I don't see being longer than a month. So there's not much damage he can cause, but nonetheless, he's a piece of shit. So one piece of shit is probably going to resign by the end of this week, and that's the rumor mill right now. According to a couple of people I talked to, they're stating that the rumor is he's going to resign tomorrow, which would be today, or Friday. So either way this goes down, this is going to be very interesting, as New York hasn't seen this ever. And New York hasn't seen this many administrators step down as they have in the last week and a half to 2 weeks. So, and keep in mind, guys, this corruption is low-level shit. Let's just put it out there, because people are like, oh, good. You know, including myself, I was like, oh, good, the corruption. But then I had to pull myself back and go, whoa, wait a minute. There's way worse corruption out there right now. There is so much corruption in D.C. and high-level corruption that makes this shit look like a walk in the park. It makes this shit look like they're selling Girl Scout cookies. A couple of bribes here, a couple of bribes there, pushing permits over here, and they're like, corruption! There's way worse corruption. Matter of fact, let's put it like this. The amount of corruption that's going on involves actual people in the sex trafficking industry. Nobody wants to talk about that. This could be a distraction, at least here in New York City, or rather the East Coast, if you will, from the whole Puff Daddy shit that's starting to explode with the amount of politicians' names that are being mentioned in his thing as well. So there's a lot going on. This could be a distraction because the low-level shit that these people are being charged with, though yes, they're federal charges, they are sort of bullshit. So yes, one side of me is happy that his kingdom's falling apart, but the other side of me is annoyed because they're way worse out there than him. Eric Adams is a piece of shit. He's an arrogant piece of shit, but he's not a killer. He's not a thief. And at least to my knowledge, and people that know him, not a rapist. And there are a ton of rapists out there, free, roaming around in D.C. and all over the country. Politicians I'm talking about. So though this is like a happy moment because of that bullshit he pulled with New York City and firing a lot of NYC workers because they didn't want to take the arm ticket, that side of me is happy about it. But the other side of me is not, because there's way worse out there and they're getting away with it, or they're throwing a smoke screen up and getting low-level politicians in trouble. Nonetheless, guys, this is a very interesting time in New York City, and we shall see what happens next. I will update you guys if anything bigger happens. I will be talking about this more on the Angry Truth channel. But other than that, guys, thank you for watching.